My married boss groomed me, slept with me, lied about divorcing his wife, then tried to ruin my career. Now I'm fighting back through the EEOC after escaping with my sanity and a $25,000 payout. I'm in my 40s, female, and I've worked with my boss, 50s, male, for years. Until recently, we were extremely close. Not inappropriately close, but definitely bonded in a way that comes from years of working together through tough situations. During the pandemic, we both lost people. We've shared late-night phone calls and cried on each other's shoulders more than once. So, I trusted him. I really did. We also happened to share a niche hobby. Nothing romantic, just a shared interest we all geek out about. One of our coworkers, 60s, female, is part of the same community, and the three of us occasionally attend hobby events together. Last August, we decided to go to a weekend gathering a few hours away. To save money, we split an Airbnb, a one-bedroom condo with 2 open lofts above a shared living space. It wasn't fancy, but it was close to the venue and cost-effective. The first night was fine. We went to the event, had dinner, came back, and crashed early. All normal. But Saturday night, that's when everything got weird. My boss got drunk. Not fall over drunk, but loose enough to start saying things he probably never would otherwise. After we all went up to our respective lofts to sleep, I was just settling into bed when I heard him call across the space. "Hey, you want to sing while I do striptease?" At first, I thought I'd misheard him. I sort of laughed and said, "No," hoping that was the end of it. I mean, who even says that? But he wasn't joking. I could hear him moving around. And then I saw him, shirtless, standing in his loft across from mine. There's no wall, no privacy. Just open air between us. I immediately rolled over and faced the wall. The only light source in the condo was the overhead fixture, which I couldn't control. The switch was in his loft. So I was stuck there, listening to the soft thud of a belt buckle hitting the floor, absolutely mortified. I don't know if he went fully nude. I refused to turn around. The next morning was the most awkward breakfast of my life. He barely made eye contact. I didn't say anything. What could I say? Our other coworker either didn't hear or pretended not to notice. We packed up, drove home, and since then, things have never been the same. He had been distant ever since. We used to chat almost daily, even about non-work stuff. Now it's just clipped emails and formal meetings. I think he's ashamed. And honestly, I don't think he's a bad person. I think he got drunk and made a horrible judgment call. Since that night in August, everything between my boss and me changed. And not in a subtle, let's let things cool off kind of way. I mean a complete communication breakdown. Before that trip, we had talked nearly every day. We worked closely together, relied on each other's judgment, and had built a rapport that went well beyond the standard boss-employee dynamic. He had been a confidant at times, especially during the pandemic, when we both lost people. We had cried on the phone, shared grief, and I genuinely trusted him. And then that weekend happened. We had gone on a weekend trip with a third coworker, someone in her 60s who shared the same niche hobby. It had seemed harmless, even fun. To save money, we rented a one-bedroom condo with 2 open lofts that faced each other over the living room. Friday night was fine. Saturday night was not. My boss had gotten drunk. Not belligerently so, but definitely looser than I had seen him before. After we went up to bed, I was just settling and when I heard him call from his loft, "Hey, you want to sing while I do a striptease?" I laughed it off, thinking he was joking, and told him no. But he wasn't joking. A few moments later, he started taking off his clothes. I rolled over and faced the wall once his shirt came off. I heard the belt buckle hit the floor soon after. I had no idea if he stopped there or went further. I didn't look. The next morning was excruciating. He barely made eye contact. Our third coworker either didn't hear anything or chose to pretend she hadn't. I didn't say anything either. I wasn't sure how to. So we packed up, drove home, and since then, our working relationship completely deteriorated. He stopped returning my calls, ignored my texts, and began to avoid me entirely. Emails went unanswered, not just casual ones, but things that directly impacted the workflow of our team. I started following a formula. One message, a follow-up 3 days later, then escalation after 48 more hours. This happened repeatedly. I kept every message professional and polite. I never brought up what happened. I figured he was ashamed and didn't know how to face me. I honestly believed he wasn't a bad person, just someone who made a horrible decision while drunk and didn't know how to fix it. But his silence began to impact my job. Projects stalled. Approvals got stuck. It was frustrating, not because I wanted to punish him, but because I still had a job to do. I'd been around a lot of men through community leadership roles, and I'd seen alcohol and stress make otherwise good people do foolish things. I chalked it up to that. Still, being iced out professionally felt like I was the one being punished for his mistake. I didn't know how to resolve this issue. I couldn't just send an email, leave a voicemail, or even text him through our work system because there was no right to privacy on company machines. Everything could be monitored, logged, or pulled up by someone else if they wanted to. Even though I had nothing to hide, the nature of the situation made me feel like anything I said could be misinterpreted or weaponized if it ever came under scrutiny. I had his personal cell number. We used to text each other all the time, casual updates, last-minute meeting changes, the occasional meme when one of us was having a tough day. But now, that felt out of bounds. If he was actively avoiding me through work channels, I figured the odds of him picking up or responding to a personal message were slim. And if he did, I worried it might only make things more awkward. Now, 2 years later, days after I posted my original question online, I found myself sitting at my kitchen table, glass of wine in hand, scrolling through the flood of responses. Some were compassionate, others cuttingly blunt, but they all hit me in the gut. I hadn't expected that kind of reaction, and I certainly wasn't prepared for how much it would shake me. I intended to call a friend that night, maybe cry it out with someone who knew the full picture. Instead, in a haze of emotion and alcohol, I drunk dialed Will on his work phone. He answered quickly. Maybe he was surprised. Maybe he'd been waiting. But he immediately picked up on my state and said, gently, hang on. I'll call you right back on my personal phone. When he did, the mask came off. He told me he'd had a crush on me from his very first day as my supervisor. That every interaction, every casual compliment, every offer to help me grow professionally was tinged with personal interest. He admitted that yes, back in the loft during that trip, when he drunkenly suggested a striptease, he'd wanted something to happen. Something real. Something physical. He said he'd stood there, half naked in that loft, hoping I'd say yes. I told him I liked him too, but not like that. Not under those circumstances. I told him I couldn't trust someone who was married to pursue me like this. And yes, here's where I'll confess. I lied in my original post to protect him. I said he was divorced. He wasn't. He was married. Still is, for all I know. I also claimed the trip happened in August, when it really took place in September. He didn't deny it. He leaned into it. He said he and his wife were separated. That it was complicated. That I made him feel alive again. And then, despite my hesitations, he convinced me to engage in phone sex that night. It felt surreal. A part of me knew it was wrong. The other part, the one that had been lonely and broken and flattered, was starved for connection. And he knew that. What followed was months of emotional tug-of-war. He pursued me relentlessly. Late-night texts, flirty comments and emails masked as professional check-ins. Long, meandering conversations where he said he dreamed about me. He told me he wanted to be with me for real, that he and his wife were finalizing their divorce. I wanted to believe it. I let myself believe it. Then came April 2025. He planned a work trip for just the two of us, in a city a couple of hours away. He called it a strategy retreat, something that sounded official enough to put on the calendar. But I knew. He knew. We both knew what it really was. The night we arrived, he took me to dinner, booked a double room, and whispered promises he had no intention of keeping. We slept together. I woke up the next morning in a hotel bed, his arm draped over me, and for a moment I thought maybe, just maybe, this was a turning point. He dropped me off at the train station that afternoon, kissed my forehead, and said he loved me. That was the last time he touched me. Within a week, he went cold. I tried to reach out, thinking maybe he was scared. Maybe he just needed time. But the messages grew shorter. The meetings got rescheduled. The support vanished. Suddenly, every email was formal. Every meeting had to be postponed. And then came the real blow. I was called into a meeting with HR and another executive. They said my role was being restructured and that the company was going in a new direction. I would be offered a severance package and given 2 weeks to transition out. He didn't attend the meeting. He didn't even text me afterward. No explanation. No closure. Nothing. I walked out of that office gutted. Not just because I lost my job, but because I realized I had been manipulated from the very start. Groomed. Used. Discarded. Not long after Will orchestrated my departure, his new supervisor started. She immediately disliked me. Few employers have the nerve to micromanage someone who's already walking out the door, but she did. Whether out of spite, ignorance, or a toxic love for exerting power, I still don't know. But the result was the same. She began demanding I work excessively, even during approved leave. I was assigned around-the-clock hours. No weekends off. Hourly pay that didn't match the madness. 7 days per week became the norm. Then, in January, she scheduled me for 27 consecutive days. 27. No breaks. My skin crawled with fatigue. My mind was frayed. Even the simplest thought felt like walking through glue. Initially, I clung to the belief that what was going along because he was afraid of losing his job, more scared than cruel. But later I realized how naive that was. One by one, supervisors whispered warnings. The unsettling truth spilled out. Long before me, another employee had been swept into Will's emotional orbit. She had gotten involved with him, yes, romantically, and was quietly transferred when he lost interest. I watched as Will began grooming someone new right after my exit. A third name emerged. A grim pattern I began to piece together. Will wasn't just unfaithful. He was controlling, manipulative, and relentless. And, spoiler, he and his wife never divorced. Cheater's gonna cheat, but I hadn't expected such cold calculation. My mental health unraveled. I slid into panic attacks. Nothing was safe. Not dreams, not meals, not stillness. The crushing anxiety, the shame, the rage, they crashed through me in waves. I acknowledged what most would deny. This was betrayal trauma. Not a breakup. Not a disagreement. Full betrayal by someone I had trusted, and by an organization that had enabled it. So, I did what I had fought to do for years. I reported it. I contacted HR and filed a report. I filed with the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. It felt chaotic, empowering, and terrifying all at once. At first, nothing changed. The abuse continued. But when the paperwork finally landed on the right desk, the company couldn't ignore it. I went on FMLA. That gave me 3 months to breathe, process, and heal just enough to plan a way out. Then came the lifeline. By July 2024, the government opened voluntary separation incentive programs, essentially a golden parachute with legs. I applied, qualified, and walked away with a $25,000 payout. I left the job and those toxic hallways for good. Now, healing, but not healed. I am still riding the ripple effects. Friends say I'm brave. I don't know if that's true, or if I barely held on. Many mornings are hard. Waves of betrayal, trust issues, self-doubt. They return unannounced. Love is tricky to embrace again. Vulnerability feels like shelfware. But I'm learning again. Therapy has taught me to sit with the pain, not to let it own me. The EEOC complaint. Thankfully, it's moving. They accepted my case, formal charge, full review. I don't know how long it will take. I don't know what the outcome will be. A settlement? A ruling? My hope is justice, but honestly, I just want validation and closure after all that has been stolen from me. Looking ahead, I'm trying to stay present, rebuild, reclaim. Let small victories define me. I've reconnected with family. I've re-engaged with old dreams, like writing and coaching. I even enrolled in a night course that reminds me why intelligence and hard work once felt like enough. But this healing has no finish line. Trauma is a long acquaintance. Some days I'm better. Other days, it grips me in full force. I let them wash through me, then catch my breath again. I choose grace. For myself. For the progress. Even if it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. If you're listening this and something resonates, know you're not alone. Betrayal doesn't mean you're broken. It means you endured a storm. Healing is messy, but it's proof you're still here. My story isn't wrapped up yet. I'm still writing it. But I'm proud of the chapters I'm carving now. Resilience, self-respect, and quiet courage, even on the days I don't feel strong. So I'll keep walking. Learn to trust again, not blindly, but bravely. Maybe someday, the EEOC case will close. Maybe $25,000 did its work. And maybe, just maybe, I'll feel the full bloom of someone who escaped her own darkness and chose growth at the other side.